Hi, I don't know if I can be heard. Let me just... Hello.
Hi. Hi. How are you?
Good, you?
Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. It's nice to finally, meet you or see you.
I know. Really nice to meet you as well. Thank you for
too.
inviting me for this.
Of course. Thank you for agreeing. Let me just, okay, there's a request. We're waiting for Sierra and Lauren.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, Lauren. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, good.
Good,
I'm
and
trying
you?
to like choose a nice-ish filter because I feel like I look terrible. Isn't that horrible? But all these look very fake.
Yeah, they do. They're very brown or very...
There we go. Yeah, let me just leave it as it is. Hello, everyone. I just want to close my doors so my kids don't come home. Rosita, out doing this if I can.
And I will be out of the car in just a little bit and masked off.
No
Just
problem.
landed.
Oh, you just landed?
Yeah, New York.
Where did you
But I'm
land?
going to Connecticut. Well, I landed in New York, but I'm going to Connecticut.
Oh,
Nice.
very nice.
Yes. So I'm pulling up now and we'll be out.
Wait a couple of minutes so that you don't feel rushed.
Thank you so much.
But thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
All right. Okay. We are here. Welcome to Connecticut.
Wow.
It looks warmer than Nairobi.
It's really hot right now.
We freezing and I've got a multitask, so now my child's
no problem. Closing the door didn't help.
Yeah, they're coming in.
There we go. Okay.
Okay, we've got quite a few people joined us.
Yay! Let's start.
Let's start. So we are doing another IG for Fearless Friday Feels, and I'm very glad to have these three lovely ladies joining me today to discuss expectations and how women or ladies are affected by expectations throughout their lives. So firstly, I mean, there are many ways that people can influence us and our behavior, but perhaps one of the most important ways is that the presence of others seems to set up expectations. And do we agree with that? I mean, where do these expectations come from? And how do they, basically, where do they stem from? Who's going to start?
I don't mind.
Go ahead.
For me, okay. I think coming from like a brown perspective, I feel like so much of the expectations that are put on women come from kind of generation after generation after generation of kind of having the same things and doing the same things, and nobody kind of saying, you know, this is too much for me, or actually I don't want to do that. And so I feel like it's very generational from like a brown perspective of it. You know, these expectations of like your grandparents, your parents, your in-laws, your mother, your father, whatever, everyone has an expectation of you, and it's kind of seen as like really normal, and it's okay, and it's been going on for so many generations that no one really says anything or tries to change it, kind of, you know. So I feel like for me it's just that cycle that just continues, the expectations, and no one's able to break it, and I know we try, and I think we have to try harder.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So what I think, gender roles specifically and expectations, if we look at like historically and the older societies, there have always been gender roles and expectations, but they haven't been the same as they are now, especially because a lot of older cultures, they recognized more than two genders. So there wasn't male roles and female roles. It was a whole spectrum. And then we saw colonization come in, and specifically the Crusades, where women were essentially made to be property and lower than men. So women weren't allowed to work. We weren't allowed, to have credit cards even up until recently. And that's where women had to stay home. So they were expected to take care of the children, take care of the house, take care of your spouse. And for the men, the role was essentially be the provider, be the protector, and make sure that all of the financial needs are met. So from my perspective, that's where gender roles come from.
I
Okay.
agree with you. I agree with you, Ciara. There's I think if you actually went to go read a little bit and research about various norms in the world, there's a couple. You have social norms, which are general rules and standards that society says this is the norm, right? And we need a certain amount of these to function and to keep structure. Like, let's use a general one that I don't think will ever go out of style is respecting your elders, for example. It's a social norm. We've all said that that's the way things should sort of be done, and there's a time and a place for all of them. Then you have like your gender norms, which is also social norms that we put on specific genders like males and females, and then you can break it down even further into participation norms and leadership norms. So like your participation norms would be how would I explain it? It's the rules in a community or organization that gets put in place. So who has the authority to do certain things and say certain things, and like the hierarchy within businesses, those are your participation norms. And then your leadership norms would be like how we choose leaders, what do we expect from leaders, that type of thing. So there's a lot of norms that are happening, but in terms of women and society, there are obviously different norms for men and women that we put expectations on, and women in particular, I think, give other women unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely do agree that, I mean, we are expected, I definitely agree that we are expected to behave a certain way in particular situations. That's always been there. Those are the social roles. We have different social roles in different situations, and it's sort of telling us sort of the proper way to behave. And that's the issue now. It's becoming, I mean, exaggerated. I don't know if I should say the word exaggerated, but basically some of those expectations are unnecessary. So I want you guys to give me examples of some of those expectations from your personal experience that you feel have impacted you the most.
Amira, do you want to start? We can
Lauren,
just follow our cycle.
Yeah, that's fine. So for me, I feel like a lot of the expectation kind of growing up was like, there's a certain time for you to study, and then there's a certain time for you to kind of do other things or get married or have children. And there was always kind of like, although it was kind of, my parents were quite relaxed, I think there was still kind of this unwritten rule kind of thing. And also like the society in general and what other people are doing was kind of like things like, you shouldn't get married too late, have children by the time you're 30, like go to school, get a degree. These kind of like, they're actually really heavy expectations, but they're just seen as like totally normal in our kind of communities and cultures. So I think for me, the biggest expectations were kind of like, put your head down, study, get your degree, get married, have children, have another child. And it kind of like, it never ends, but there was definitely kind of, pressures in a way. And I think a lot of brown women can resonate with that. And it's something that's very normal in our society, So I think those kind of expectations and pressures on women, I know it's quite simple in terms of like having children and getting married. It's not too complex, but it's something that's like really, really heavy. And it's really, I think, pushed a lot, and at the same time, there's things kind of like, in line with that, like go to uni and study hard, but like, don't meet anyone and don't have a boyfriend, and then as soon as you like get your degree, they're like, oh, did you meet someone, have you got one? And so it's like, well, I mean, like, how do we do this? How do we keep up with all these expectations? And yeah, so I feel like for us, there's a lot of kind of that kind of timeline, kind of, by this age you need to do that, which is the hardest part of our expectations.
So I like
and
that.
then
Yeah, sorry, continue.
Yeah,
But I
no,
like the
and then
comment
also
aspect
like,
that you're focusing on that.
yeah, and also
Yeah.
I feel like when you get married, you have to, women are expected to do so much, to compromise so much, to, maybe you have to live with your in-laws, or maybe, you have to give up your career because you have to be a homemaker and you have to take care of your kids. And so all of those kind of expectations just build up, and they're just so common in our communities.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we also see a lot of expectation within women, not just with the roles, but also you have to live up to the beauty standards of whatever your community or your culture is. Like Western beauty standards are very different than, say, like tribal standards. So it's always trying to figure out those. You're taught to, go to school, become educated, but don't be opinionated. And then there's
Yeah.
also the extra layer for, Black and brown women, but especially Black women, to really guard your emotions with the way that you convey them on your face and the way your tone of voice. Because otherwise, if you, are passionate about something or are emotional about something, it's seen as aggressive. So we have to also
Yeah.
not only just live up to the roles of have children, go to school, whatever, but there's also the expectations of be this nice little prim and proper package, and we can't live up to that realistically.
Very,
I mean, do you
very,
feel
very.
like
Sorry.
sorry. Do you, yeah, do you feel that that image, that expectations of body image is has affected you a lot because you grew up in America, especially, or
Yeah,
I don't know, Amira,
absolutely.
if
So
you
for
feel the same way.
Yeah, so for me personally, I have body dysmorphia, and that is a direct result of, the magazines in America and the TV in America. Like we grew up watching Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera, who were so skinny, and yet Christina Aguilera was being called overweight. No, Jessica Simpson was being called overweight when she was like a size 4 maybe in America. So for me, like right now, I'm very small, and yet if I look in the mirror, I'm still like, oh no, I don't. And I weigh myself because that for me is like, no, that's the confirmation I am small. Is like I can pay attention to that weight. So yeah, absolutely. The American standards of beauty, they're aggressive. And then it was so nice when I moved to Kenya, because I worked in a bar in Kenya, and my staff, when I started putting on weight, they were complimenting me. And it was,
Yeah.
oh, you're starting to fill out, like you look good. And I was like, you know what? I think I could live here. I like this. Yeah, the standards, they really mess with your head quite a bit.
Yeah, I agree. I actually did a post on this yesterday on my page. It's
Ah,
really toxic, and I think,
yeah,
yeah, women, like, we grow up looking at these magazines and TVs and thinking that's how we should be, you know.
yeah,
Uh, but it's wrong. It's so wrong, and it's just so sad. And I think we're getting, on social media, people are now talking about this kind of stuff, like you said,
Yeah,
body
it's becoming more
dysmorphia.
common, right? To
Yeah,
have plus size models and all that. So
yeah.
yeah.
that's good. At least there's
For
change
sure. When
there.
I was young, I was so kind of conscious of my feet, my ethnic features, my nose, my hair,
Yeah.
and kind of things like. But I think growing up in the UK, maybe like I was in a predominantly white area, and I probably
Hmm.
stood out a little bit. So maybe I just felt like I look so different, and what's wrong with
Hmm.
me, kind of thing. But yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's definitely there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I cut Lauren off. Sorry, Lauren.
No, no, I'm loving the conversations because I think when you're looking at expectations, there's expectations across so many things. So there's expectations from the family, there's expectations from the husband, there's expectations from the in-laws, there's expectations from your religion or your cultural background, there's expectations from so many things. There's expectations when you're a mom. Um, the expectations never really stop. And I read a very interesting article the other day about the 5 society expectations that are crushing women today. And Ciara mentioned a couple of them. It's to be beautiful. So you're looking at people on, like even myself now, like I wanted to put a filter on. I'm like, but why should I actually? I shouldn't have to do that. I'm a mom, I'm pregnant, I'm super exhausted. I have pigmentation from pregnancy that's popping up all over the place. I'm tired, so you can see I'm tired. I'm maybe not looking so glam because we're in lockdown. I don't have a nanny. And it's okay, like this is as good as it's going to get today. And At the end of the day, my husband and my kids love me,
You
and
look
that's good
great.
enough. It doesn't really matter
Yeah, I
what.
don't see any,
Stunning.
any of this.
Thank you. The glow is really sweat during pregnancy. It's perspiration.
That's true. That's true.
You know, so you've got these beauty expectations. You're looking at women
The
on
glow that
TikTok.
you should be having.
Yeah. You're looking at women
Listening.
on TikTok and they're so perfect. You're looking at
Yeah.
Cosmopolitan and everyone is airbrushed. What I love is FHM did a plus size normalized swimsuit runway thing recently. I saw it on Facebook. So there were plus size models, there were disabled models. I don't know if there was a pregnant model. I really wish they put one on. Like, I would have been rocking it in my bikini. Like, you know, let's normalize and
Yeah.
get our girls to see that all shapes and forms
Yes.
are beautiful, right? Stoic, to be
Exactly.
stoic, not show emotion. That is another role and expectation that's crushing us as women. To be thin goes hand in hand with the
Yeah.
beauty aspect. To be soft, so you must never lose your shit, right? You can't. You're not allowed to have like, I call it a fanny wobble. I have them often. Like, you're not allowed to have a fanny wobble because that's not ladylike. It's not feminine. Don't do that. And then to be passive. So, yeah, okay. I'm beyond this. Growing up in South Africa, maybe being someone who's now 35, who runs a women empowerment platform, and maybe that's empowered me to where I am today. But I really am not intimidated by these things anymore.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people are. And sometimes I have
Yeah.
my own insecurities. Like I'm saying, like, okay, maybe I should have put a filter on. Oh, I'm starting to get wrinkles. Do I need to go get Botox? And what am I going to do about this pigmentation that's popping up on my face? And where are we getting these expectations from? We're
Yeah.
getting it from looking and feeding our minds with the wrong things, reading the wrong content, having the
Yeah.
wrong friends. So we need to break those cycles and just love and embrace who we are as women.
Yeah, like I totally agree. I mean, I want us to go more into it a bit deeper. How do we think these expectations of that we have to look perfect or put together or polite or ladylike at all times affect us as we grow up? As you said, we have expectations. As a girl, we have expectations to sit properly or behave like a girl, play with girl toys. Although now that is becoming a bit more normalized now. Girls are not expected only to play with Barbies, and girls are allowed to play with more things now, but you still find those expectations there. And even as a woman or as a teenager, a girl teenager, you still have expectations. A woman, a mother, it keeps going on. But how does that affect us, those expectations that are there?
Yeah, so I think it becomes like almost part of us. It becomes kind of this toxic mentality that we have of ourselves. And I think sometimes with all of these expectations, a lot of us just take them on board and, stress ourselves out to keep up with them. I think, and I think it's just mentally exhausting for so many of us. I think so many of us want to be like, no, like I can't do it, and or this is not me. And I think a lot of women struggle with that. And a lot of us, I think, face burnout just trying to keep up with these kind of standards. I think it's exhausting mentally, physically. It's exhausting to try and keep up with these things. We are not supposed to be pretty little flowers that are soft and gentle and look perfect all the time. We are just as we are,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think one of the biggest things, one of the biggest impacts that it's having is a lot of women and men, they grow up not knowing themselves because they're trying to live up to the different expectations. So they're not actually finding what they're passionate about. They're not opening up and going to therapists. It's creating a cycle of people living for other people rather than living and being true to themselves and living within alignment with who they are and what their passions and dreams are. And from that, it's creating, sorry, there's a very loud vehicle. From that, it's creating this cycle of like self abuse where people are consistently foregoing their own needs to try to live up to the expectations of their communities and to live up to the expectations of their parents. And when you live in that cycle, that leads to depression, that leads to suicidal ideation, and sometimes attempts and successful suicide. So yeah, I think it's important that we take a step back and we ask ourselves, am I in alignment with who I am, who I want to be, or am I aligning myself up with someone else's expectation? Nora?
I completely agree, Ciara, and thank you so much for everyone's amazing comments, because, you know, having discussions like this is really important, you know, because it makes people aware, and it makes people, you know, like, there might be somebody sitting there today thinking, hey, you know what, I really agree with what Ciara said. I really agree with what Lauren said, and so forth, you know, and it starts like starting a movement and starts creating a desire to want to be more, want to do more, or want to be more self-accepting, or of, you know, especially I think, and I've seen this a lot in Kenya, in the Indian culture, in the Asian culture, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but the women and I'm speaking very generally, there are, you know, exceptions to the rule. It's still very suppressed, as opposed to maybe Ciara and my experience. Ciara even less so. I think there's still a little bit of suppression in my culture, because I'm actually an Afrikaner, so I'm like a Boer, like we know Afrikaans. There's also very strict and harsh, rigid things that, yes, are not as bad as I've seen in the Asian culture, or as suppressed. It's, you know, like, you've got to listen to your mother-in-law. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that. Are you allowed to work? Is your husband allowing you to work? Do you have to ask him permission to go do
Ask
X,
for
Y, and
permission.
Z? You know,
Yeah.
Wow.
where I do believe you got to respect your husband. Like, I'm not going to go out for dinner with friends, for example, without, maybe not necessarily asking my husband, but at least telling him,
Mentioning, yeah.
you know, so we don't have those things. I don't think you have that, Ciara. I don't think you really need to ask anyone too much permission to do your thing. And in a lot of cultures, there is still this thing. And I can only imagine how suffocating it must feel. Like, you just want to, like, rip that turtleneck off that is constricting you, because how are you as a person and as a woman supposed to breathe and thrive and glow and be your own person? So I think I've digressed, but I think you get what I'm saying. There's a lot of things that happen,
Yeah.
and I think some
I definitely
cultures,
agree.
some countries have it
Yeah,
worse
100%.
than others.
Yeah, there are
Yeah,
definitely.
culture definitely affects. I think Amira wanted to talk more about uh, the brown culture. Yes, Amira.
No, I think just going on from what Lauren is saying, I completely agree with her. I
Yeah.
think, like you said, especially, you know, in Nairobi, but in the UK and everywhere where I see kind of brown communities, I do see women facing, like, you know, we kind of think that they're outdated, but it's still there. Like, are you allowed to go for dinner? You know, allowed
Yeah.
is a thing. And
Allowed.
for me, I've not had those kind of restrictions in any way growing up, and I see it more and more, and I find it really hard. And I think that, you know, the reason why I started my page as well is because I wanted to be a brown voice for other women to hear that, you know, it's not normal and it's okay to say no and things like that. So yeah, I know. I mean, brown communities definitely struggle with this in a huge way, and I think it comes back to kind of like that kind of old kind of notion of control, having control over someone, whether that's your parents or your husband or your in-laws or anyone. It's kind of having that kind of control and feeling like that power. I almost feel like it comes from that need for power, which is it's so sad. It really is. But yeah, so that's kind of all I wanted to add on that. But yeah, you're right. Definitely, it is rife in brown communities. Yeah.
Yeah, it
And
is.
that's
I think
why
it
I
is very
love
common,
Mamba.
certain communities, particular certain Asian communities. I wouldn't say it's all, but yeah. And also, I think
Yeah.
it's also how your parents were brought up. I think
Yeah.
that also impacts a lot about what expectations are put onto you, and what how
Yes.
you're meant to be as a mother or as a wife.
Yeah.
And obviously your
Definitely.
in-laws as well. That makes a big difference for sure.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Lauren, you were
Laura,
gonna.
you going to say
Very,
something?
very interesting. I was saying like I said, these conversations are important to have because, there might be a mother-in-law or an older generational woman watching this today or hearing this message, and it might just trigger something and just say, you know what, hey, some of these things have to change. That doesn't mean anyone is disrespecting
Yeah.
anything. Like I said, there's certain society norms that will always be there because
Yeah.
they go back down to morality, to morals, having strong
Yeah.
morals. Nobody wants to be disobedient. Nobody wants to be rebellious. But what we do want is to be equal. So what's
Yeah.
good for the goose is good for the gander. You know,
Yes.
to a most degree. There's certain things I think men can do a lot better than women, and women can do a lot better than men. We're not talking about
True.
those things. I'm talking about the fact if the men are allowed to go out and have a drink with the boys, then it should also be within your rights if you wanted to go have dinner with your girlfriends without
Yeah.
it being an issue, without you
Yeah.
being labeled a bad mother, without you feeling guilty for not being a good wife, and so
Yeah.
forth, because you're also entitled to have those things.
Yeah.
I agree completely. I mean, as also now that as we are mothers, we should also have the chance to make decisions for our own children and
Yeah.
have the choice of not taking opinions of other people on. If we listen to them, yes, but we don't need to take those opinions. There is some comments, yes, I think Lauren is reading them.
Sir, you're not going to find your obedient wife on this chat.
Not
Please just
here.
stop.
I can't see
This
that.
is not the group.
Although I do like Priya's comment. Let me go back to see if I can find it. About plus size models. She said,
Yeah.
in itself is a label that shouldn't exist. Goes to your, it relates to our discussion about expectations. And actually, that's a very good point. Why should it be called plus size models? Why shouldn't they just be called models?
Models,
Do we agree?
yes.
Absolutely.
Models. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Shame. I think this guy's a little bit confused. This is really not the place for you. But anyway, maybe
Or
you'll
maybe
learn
though we're meeting his
this part on
expectations
that
for a wife,
obedient wife.
possibly. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So I do agree that it's important for us to have these discussions because it could
Yeah.
help. Maybe I mean, yeah, the older generations, especially in the Asian community, do not realize these things. So having these conversations make them realize that we're not trying to offend anyone. We're not trying to step on anyone's toes. We're just trying to make it known that what they went through, maybe they didn't enjoy it at that time. So they should also give us a chance to be our own person. Yeah, without any
Yeah.
of those expectations.
You know, it's the
Okay, so
belief that just because you endured something doesn't mean that you have to pass it on.
pass
And
it on.
Yes.
as our
Exactly. I think
Yeah.
societies evolve and grow, so
Yeah.
do the different roles and the expectations that we have of people. But I think that's why we're here, is we are here to break those cycles and to start to speak out and to do it in a way that with the older, more set in stone generations, maybe we just have to approach them a little bit more gently,
Yeah.
but in a
yeah.
firm way, like, hey, the times are changing. You can get with it or you can get out. That's your choice. Lovingly.
Yeah.
I love the lovingly at the end.
Add that.
Lovingly.
But Ciara, I think even more so, we are the generation here, us sitting here now. I mean, I know
Yeah.
Ciara, you're not a mom, but I'm assuming the other three of us are mothers, right? We have an immense responsibility, and we have the knowledge, the power, the capability, and we can make the impact to break that generational
Break that
cycle.
cycle.
We
Yeah,
don't need to
exactly.
have our daughters and our sons, be brainwashed with the same crap that we were spoon-fed and shoved into
Yeah.
our throats that suffocated us and made us, and as important as it is to raise these strong, independent women, we also need to focus on raising our sons to accept, not
Yeah.
be threatened by this
Yeah.
stronger women. Because
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah,
men are very
exactly.
intimidated by us, right? They don't really know what to do with us. They don't know what to do with the disobedient woman.
Yeah,
because
true.
they've only
Yeah.
been taught that a woman must be obedient and listen and say, okay, I'll cook you dinner, and oh, all right, let me polish your shoes for you. And we no longer want that. We got our own ambitions and stuff. So we've got to raise our sons to work in line with their future wives,
Yeah.
to build them up,
To be
to
equal.
give them. Sorry.
I thought those were my kids. I was looking that.
No, that's mine. To give, to give them the confidence as men as well to accept the
Yeah.
stronger woman. But also remember, even though we're strong women, and that we always need to value the role of the male figure in our homes as well.
Yeah.
It's just because we're strong and independent doesn't mean that we get to smother and make our significant others feel inferior. So it's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
It's a balance. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I really agree
Because
with what you said about, about,
no, continue.
raising our sons. I think that's so important. I
Yeah.
also have 2 little boys, and I feel so passionately about, raising them in a way where I'm like so aware and everything. And yeah, I can't see what this comment is. I don't know.
He could be a loving and
Oh, you
caring
can't see the
husband.
comments?
I can't see the comments. But so I'm really passionate about raising my boys in kind of a new way, hopefully. And I always say to my husband, the cycle ends with me. Like it's not going anywhere.
It's
And
so
I hope
true.
a lot of other women feel that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree there also. The boys now, this is where social change comes about. This is how we change social norms from a minority building to a majority. That's how the norms will be changed. We had an interesting point about gender. So do we think it's only females or males, or do boys and males, fathers, husbands also fear the same issue? I wanted us to dab into that a
Absolutely.
little.
Absolutely. Amir, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I don't mind. So for me, I feel like definitely there are a lot of expectations on men as well. And for me, I think definitely financial expectations are huge on men. And also kind of in my culture, the idea of men, sorry,
This guy's gonna be in a lot of trouble. Is there a way to block him?
the idea that,
I don't know if you can. Let me see.
sorry.
Sorry,
I can't even
going.
read
I'll
any
handle
comments,
this.
so I have no idea what's going on, guys.
you can continue. Sorry, it's okay. Continue. We'll ignore
Yeah,
him.
so just the financial pressures. I think men have a lot of expectations in terms of financial, like providing for a family, and also in brown culture, I was saying that men often have the kind of pressure and expectation to take care of their parents, but not them alone, them and their wife and family, more than perhaps daughters.
Yeah.
So for me, I do definitely feel like there are expectations on men, and I think those expectations definitely need to change as well. And like I said, like raising your children in a new way, and especially boys, also teaching them about, you can also get involved in the chores, you can also change your diaper, you can also stay at home if your wife wants to work. It's not a big deal kind of thing, if that's or you can both work kind of thing. But I think we have to work on those pressures of men. But I definitely feel like right now the expectations that are put on women go far beyond the expectations that are put on men. And for me, it's kind of like, when people say, Black Lives Matter, and then someone else will come in and say, well, all lives matter. And I feel like, yes, they do. All lives do matter. But right now we need to talk about that specific thing. And that's how I feel about, expectations on women. I feel like right now we need to focus on that, and we need to break that cycle and change that trend. But yeah, there are lots of expectations on men. I just feel like they're not as harsh as the ones that are put on us.
Okay,
I do agree in the sense that there are a lot of expectations on men. And one of the key things is women, we're taught to have community, right? We know if we're going through something that we can go talk with our community, whoever that is, whether it's mom, sister, friends, whatever. One of the expectations on men is that they don't talk about those things, that they keep it quiet, they keep things to themselves. And what we're seeing because of the expectations on men, and the expectations that they remain silent, is first of all, men are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than a woman is. And it's because they are taught internalize everything. The other thing is when we look at mental health, if you look at ads for antidepressants, because if you look at ads for antidepressants, they are catered towards women. They only talk about the symptoms of women struggling with depression. Everything about it is catered to women, and the symptoms for depression in men is vastly different than the symptoms of depression in women. So men are walking around not realizing they're depressed. And again, because that expectation is you're the financial provider, you are the protector of your household, and you have to remain strong no matter what. And if you can't remain strong, you're weak. If you go to a therapist, you're weak. I got lost in my thought, but essentially, yes, we do need to focus on men. But I don't know that women having the conversation centered around men is where it needs to happen. I think it needs to start happening within men's groups. And like you said, like all lives matter. Yes, they do. However, in this sector, we need to be focused on women while still providing resources to men. But ultimately, it's men that need to be having those conversations and championing for each other, the way that we're championing for one another.
I agree. I think the fact that men have that expectation that they have to provide for their families, there's no time for them to, or they feel, or they do that while maybe not spending enough time with their children. Sometimes some men,
Yeah.
and not passing on important information to their children, that, or
Yeah.
to males, and not being able to share those moments or emotions with their sons. And it's really sad. Like even at the school I work at, there's the boys that I was teaching last year, and these are A-level boys. These are year 13, so that must be like 17, 18. One of them was telling me that, yeah, if we are upset about something, or if something is disturbing us, we're told to just brush it off and get on with it. Our parents don't even, our fathers don't even realize we're doing psychology. They don't even know what it means. So I think it's very interesting. Yes, maybe we might not be at the right place to do it, but males probably are better role models, but having the discussion also might help.
Yeah, you know, Charlene, I've been reading this book on and off. It takes me time to read books about raising boys and how their fathers are so important in their lives, and that boys need a male role model, and how they look up to their fathers. Like I think they say from the age of 7 or something, it becomes like very like dad focused, and they really look up to their fathers. And I think definitely, you know, like you were saying, that fathers need to be able to have these conversations with their sons, and you know, to be emotional and to be vulnerable, and that is, you know, that's so important as well.
I think that there are a lot of expectations on men that we are unaware of, just like they are blissfully unaware of our expectations and struggles as women. And it's so funny that you mentioned, Ciara, you mentioned about a couple of things that I say, yes, mental health struggles in men is so taboo. They're not allowed to show emotion, not allowed to cry, not allowed to feel the pressure, not allowed to, you know, none of those things. You're not allowed to break, right? These shoulders have got to like carry and carry and carry and carry, and you're not allowed to crack. You know, there's a lot of pressures on men that we don't know, and we will never know because we're not a man. Yeah. So it's within our scope as women to uplift and encourage women, and we do that, right? But I was saying to my husband like 2 days ago, I did a live on Mombas about scapegoating. And we were touching on it, and I said, yeah, I feel like, you know, I get the sense that my husband was the scapegoat for a little bit in his family. And we were talking about this and that. And, you know, he's got, you know, he's had, or we've experienced both in our lives, narcissistic leaders in organizations, you know, like bosses, people who are ugly and bullying, and this happens a lot in the corporate workplace. And we were talking about these things, and I said to him, I really think there is a need, an absolute need for like a dad boss or a man boss type of platform that also teaches men ethics and moralities and just direction and just good solid values, and saying, hey, this is okay, that is okay, within whatever their struggles are, because I don't know what their struggles are. I can't tell you. I'm not a man. I don't have testosterone like filtering through my system, you know. So it's difficult to say, but I don't think we should ignore it, you know.
Yeah.
And as a
Yeah.
wife, the best thing that I can do for my husband is to be supportive, to listen. I don't always understand, to give advice where I can, and to also, we're religious, so we pray for each other, and that's what that's the role that I do as a wife. And I don't suppress my husband. I also encourage him, and vice versa. So I think who you're choosing as a life partner at the end of the day also has a big impact on how you grow and how you glow and how you flourish. Because if you have the wrong person by your side, they're going to either stomp you and treat you like a piece of gum underneath their shoe, or they're going to take a pot and water you with love.
Mm-hmm. And help you thrive. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it is true, definitely.
I think as
Okay,
well,
there's
Lauren,
some.
sorry, I'm just going to pick on that because I think it's really interesting
Yeah.
what you said about that, about choosing your life partner. And I think for
Yeah.
so many women all over the world, they don't get that. They don't get to pick their life partner or choose the person that they live with. And often they're influenced into being with someone because, you know, that person is good for you and their family values align with ours. And even just that fundamental kind of first step almost of like marrying who you want to marry is sometimes taken away from so many women as well, which is a shame because it really just sets you up for like a really hard life to be with the wrong man. And I know plenty of women, unfortunately, who have, you know, had kind of softly arranged marriages and ended up with people who are completely wrong for them, and both suffer, the man and the woman. But they couldn't say no because of the expectations, and go back to that. But yeah, I definitely agree 100%. You know, picking the right person to spend your life with is, yeah, amazing.
Crucial.
It's important. Yeah.
So
This
we've
couple over here, let me just tell him, girls should produce babies so that we can make an army. Dude, will you just please get off of this chat because you're in the wrong place, and I
I
just
think
also
he's
want
just
to
trying
like.
to push some buttons.
Yeah, I think if we just ignore him, it's probably for the
Let's ignore
best.
him. Yeah.
We just pretend he doesn't
Um.
exist.
Yeah, it's difficult, but yeah, there are people who are ignorant sometimes about expectations and how to respect the other gender. Maybe that advice is for this person. Okay, so so
Yeah.
we were talking about change. We were talking about how to change the
Yeah.
societal expectations, and we said it began from us. Is there any other way, or do you think what is the best advice you can give another young woman, girl, mother, wife?
Advice
Yeah,
in terms of like how to deal with the expectations.
how to deal with it, or how to cause change in maybe to break that chain in their life or in their family, whatever, however it's affecting them, basically.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's definitely really hard. I think
Yeah.
a lot of us will have to kind of unlearn what we've kind of been brainwashed into believing, and that means kind of going outside of our comfort zone, maybe, you know, talking to people, reading books, or finding a community. But sorry, I have a few things written down. One of the most important things I think is surrounding yourself with people who understand you, who love you, who are on the same wavelength as you. I think having that community of people, or women or friends or whatever you want to call them, around you, I think that's so vital in just trying to, you know, to know that, you know, you're doing the right thing, or that you're not, you know, being a bad person by going against some of these expectations. For me, I also find like journaling and writing down. For me, what's huge is writing down like what boundaries I have for myself,
Yeah.
and what are those boundaries, and looking at them and thinking about them, and also then kind of implementing them in my life. And it's really hard. I think it's really hard, but I think it's so important. Like, I encourage women everywhere to have boundaries. Like, have your
Yeah.
boundaries, create your boundaries, and know where you stand. And know that if someone comes at you with an expectation which is beyond your boundary, you know, stand firm. You know, say no. It's okay to say no. I feel like there's so much kind of that's this negative light of women being selfish, and you shouldn't say no, or you shouldn't do those kind of things. I feel like it's so important to be able to have a boundary, to say no. It's not selfish. It's okay. Do it. And yeah, I think just sharing your experiences. I think that's so invaluable. Like being able to share your experiences and knowing that you're not the only person going through something. And I think the more we share as well, the more we learn. And then hopefully the future generations will also learn kind of these expectations are maybe some of them outdated.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I also want to add on to meditate. And anytime that you are wanting to do something and you're second guessing yourself and you realize you're second guessing yourself because it's an expectation that someone else has of you, I want you to meditate and really think on why. Because oftentimes when you get to the root of it, it gets down to the thought of you have a fear of being rejected by your community, by your family, by whoever it is that has instilled that expectation on you. And the very deep root of that thought is that you are not worthy. And the best way to get to that place is just through meditation and sitting quietly and consistently asking yourself, why does this matter to me? Find your answer. Okay, well, why is that important to me? And just keep digging until you get there. And the other thing that I want to encourage is we view society as this far removed entity, and we forget we are society. You and I are society. Our family is society. Our parents are society. So if Lauren and I are at lunch and I tell Lauren, oh my God, did you hear Amira wants to go back to work, but she has 3 little boys at home, then Lauren gets to be the change and to say, you know what, good, how can we support her? And to come up and to say, you know what, she is living outside of what you expect of her, but how can we support her in her quest for her own path? Because the change starts with us, and it starts with those daily small little daily habits and small daily thoughts and fixing through that.
Yes.
I loved what everyone said. I love the idea of journaling. It never occurred to me. I must be honest, I'm at this stage in my life where I really don't have the time to journal. I wish I did. I wish I also had the time to go to exclusive books and buy myself a book. But it hasn't been within my scope, though thank goodness for the World Wide Web. We can Google anything and there's so much great blogs and free resources. And I do try to nourish my mind with those things. But I love the idea, and I love that it's been planted, the seed's been planted. Go get yourself a journal if my kids don't get hold of it. You don't even want to know, like, this is what my diary looks like.
It's well
I keep
loved.
everything on the phone.
This is
My
the
notes.
Yeah, you
pen
can
I'm
journal on your
using.
phone even. It's
Yeah.
Like everything is, my whole life is just about children and stuff, and they're great. Like it's a lovely, crazy, messy phase. So if you're not a mom yet, enjoy, also being free, because even as mothers, it's okay to say, I sometimes miss like the ability to decide now I want to go and have a cup of coffee without worrying about who's going to take care of my children or feeling guilty about it. And it's like life changes when you're a mom. There's a lot of expectations,
The guilt comes from
and some of them you
expectations,
can't
right?
avoid.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you can't
yeah.
avoid the expectations that these little humans have on you. I don't think they're ever going to change, So, but what I can say is, and I love what has been said about having like a code of conduct, or like I say, a constitution. Like one of us has a constitution, and rules, right? So we don't allow X, Y, and Z. So once you have a constitution for yourself, or a code of conduct, or whatever you want to call it, written down for how you want to be treated, how you treat people, etc., and something happens that goes out of that scope, it's so easy to fall back on those rules of your life, those ethics, those standards by which you want to live. And then it makes it very easy to sometimes make decisions. So am I going to allow this person to be toxic? No, I'm not. And I'm rather going to let this friendship go, or let this relationship go, because it goes against, this is it. It's there in black and white. These are the rules. It's like if you're going to murder someone,
Yeah.
you're going to jail. in society rules, right? Make some rules for yourself. And then it makes it a bit easier to say, okay, yes, no, maybe, is there gray areas or what it is. But certain things are set in black and white for me. And I don't compromise on certain things. Like, let me use a stupid example. I will never, ever, ever accept or speak to another man on social media, for example, because that goes against my thing. So if it doesn't matter if he's McDreamy and he's up in my inbox, hi, he's never going to get a hi back from me because that's just not in my scope, you know. Stupid example. But, you know, have some rules for your life. Give your life direction and just be kind to yourself. You know, I really do think kindness is the key to change. And it starts with being kind to you and being kind to people and stopping this gossiping that women tend to have in life and
support one another, basically. Empower each other.
Yes. Mind your own business. If it doesn't affect your life, just like move on, you know, like it doesn't matter. I'm too busy to even worry about anybody else's drama. I have enough.
If someone doesn't want advice, don't force your advice as well.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I want to add one last thing is to detach yourself from the expectations of others. When you can practice attachment, and I'm going to recommend everyone read the book Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. That is a life-changing book. But practicing the art of attachment and disattaching or unattaching yourself from other people's expectations will allow you to live in your own alignment, which helps to break the cycle of conditioning for societal roles and gender roles that exist. When you no longer care what your community thinks or what your family thinks, you get to live your most beautiful, wonderful, authentic life. And that spills over, and your friends will start to do the same. Your family will start to do the same because they see the joy and the love radiating from you when you're your most authentic self. So read that book.
Definitely.
I agree. Such great advice. Thank you, ladies. I mean, from what I took from that advice is basically social change begins with us. Every little step, every small step counts, and make your own boundaries or your own social norms that you will stick to. And you don't have to take unwanted advice or unwanted expectations. Be
and just
yourself.
believe in yourself and believe that you're good enough and
you're worthy.
You live by your own rules in some ways. I think
but make
so
sure that there is mutual respect. Respect men, respect that they have their own issues, respect other women, respect that they also have their own issues that they're dealing with that you cannot see. So don't put on your expectations onto them, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay. Thank you.
I don't think there are any more questions from here apart
from
I want to
see
the very random chat that's going on.
Yeah. Bernadette, thank you for your comment. That was a very nice comment, Bernadette, about teaching children to value everyone. Beautiful.
Okay. Oh, yes, I can't see that. Oh, yeah, I just found it. Yeah, definitely true. So if there are no questions, are there any questions? Questions that actually matter or
that are valued?
Are worthy to answer?
I thought this was a great conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And keep at it. I think you're doing an amazing job. I hope to be back here again. I had a really good time. I mean, this is, and what everybody needs to understand is you don't need to be rich, famous, or any of the above to make an impact and to have a say and to speak with purpose, you know. Don't be an empty barrel that makes a lot of noise and not adding value to people's lives. But you don't have to be Bill Gates, you don't have to be anyone, you know, you don't have to be the owner of Facebook to make a difference. You're all making a difference. We're all making a difference. And your tribe will find you and your voice will be heard and you can literally make or break people. So, you know, use this thing like wisely. Use it wisely. Yeah.
Great advice. Any last
I had a good time.
Yeah, me too. I had so much fun.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you guys for joining me. I had
Thank you so
It
much. It's
was
been
great.
so
We should definitely
lovely.
do another one because expectations, I think, is very
Yeah.
in depth. Well, lots of women
It's
topics are
huge,
very
yeah.
in depth, and you can talk about it for
Yeah.
ages. But I like that we managed to cover, I think, most of the main points for that should be discussed. So thank you, ladies, for
It's been
joining me.
lovely. Lovely to meet all of
Thank
you as well.
you.
Thank you.
Lovely
It's
to
lovely.
see all of you.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, loves.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
And now, is it gonna let me save it? I don't know.